Taxpayer Alert. I'm Al Segalla. I'll be your moderator. I'm also president of the Calaveras County Taxpayer Association. And we're concerned about your taxes. And this show we have a very interesting guest, Gabriel Elliott. Gabriel is our planning director. And Gabriel, welcome.
Thank you, Al. How are you?
Oh, another happy day in paradise. Gabriel, how did you get involved with this planning business?
Well, actually, thank you, Al, and thanks for the viewers at home. So I got into the business from when I went to college. I have a master's degree in urban planning, and this is a profession that I chose to be in. And I've been a practicing planner now for close to about 30 years. So this is a profession that I really like, and I think it is also rewarding and challenging in many ways.
Well, I watch you in action, and you're very good.
Thank you.
But, and I understand that zoning, one of the things we're going to talk about is zoning update. And I understand that this whole planning thing is based on a law called CEQA. Is that correct?
Well, CEQA is part of the planning process. CEQA stands for the California Environmental Quality Act. And so what CEQA does is it states that whenever the government, the agency, or either local or private agency takes an action, those actions have to be weighed against its impact on the environment.
Okay.
So CEQA gives us those guidelines. But the two principles that govern zoning in the county would be the county's general plan and then the county's zoning ordinance. Under the county's general plan, there are several elements. The land use element is one of those elements of the general plan. The housing element is another element of the general plan. So our zoning ordinance comes under the land use element. And all these elements kind of tie together to form the general plan.
So, and all of this is under the U.S. Constitution? Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And so the Constitution seems to be concerned with individual rights.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like a balancing act. You have to protect the property rights of the owner, but at the same time have a logical procession of the different uses so that it all makes sense.
Right.
Well, how do you keep your sanity?
Well, the thing is, so we have rules and regulations that protect owners of properties, but we also have rules and regulations that protect the community in general.
Right.
And so when you think about the community, you want to think things like, what are those things in our community that everybody partakes in, everybody enjoys? Parks and open space is one of them. When you go to a community pool or a park, those are things that benefit the community. And then you have private property rights, which are regulated by specific zoning standards, such as the minimum size of your property, the size of the house on the property, setbacks from adjacent property, and also protecting the peaceful enjoyment of your property against adjacent neighbors.
Well, like the noise ordinance would
Noise
be
ordinance
an
would be
example
one.
where
Right.
you protect the property rights of the neighbors.
Right.
I see. So now on the zoning update, which we're involved in now, what are we looking forward to?
Well, so the zoning update is basically trying to clean up some of the things that we did in 2019 when we updated the general plan. So this zoning update is looking at those activities that took place in 2019 and trying to reconcile them. It's also going to be a tool whereby we actually clean up the zoning ordinance from things that we find to be inconsistent. So when we're done with the process, I think we're going to come up with an ordinance that looks more user-friendly, and by that I mean it's user-friendly to the planners and also user-friendly to members of the community. It would be an ordinance that is better understandable than what we currently have, and it removes a lot of ambiguities. So those are the kind of things that you'll be looking for when we complete the zoning ordinance update.
Wow, that's looks like quite a job. It seems like having like a one-stop shop where you go to county government and you have everything that has to do with what you want to create, right at your fingertips there, would be the best solution.
Yeah, I mean, that is the ultimate goal. And I think in terms of that, I think what you're describing is what is called a permit center, whereby, you know, when you go in, you can actually get all the questions you have about what can I do with my property, how can I pull a permit under one umbrella. Right now, the way our campus is, the departments are actually spread out a little bit.
Yeah.
So you might have to visit one department and then go across the road into another department and go across the road to another department. Ultimately, I think the goal of the county is to have one building whereby all these agencies and planners and engineers and building people actually work, so that you go in once and you can just kind of move from one counter to the other.
Would we need a new building for that?
We would need a new building, or we need to reconfigure some of the existing buildings that you have. If you've been to the county many times through the offices, one of the challenges is that they're actually small. So
Yeah.
it would take a significant renovation to do what I just described, and the easiest way would be to just have a new structure built, but there are major financial constraints at this time.
I wonder if the Department of Public Works has this on their schedule. Maybe not.
Maybe not, yeah.
Now, one of the, so on the zoning update, we'll be looking forward to maybe a permit center where you could have a one-stop shop and where somebody can go into the building and find out, I guess, basic things about all the other departments
Yeah.
he has to go to.
Well, the zoning update is not going to go that far. So what the zoning update actually does is, again, it cleans up the existing ordinance. It takes away some of the conflicting information. It makes it more user-friendly. And that would be step one. The permit center issue is something totally outside of the zoning ordinance update, and that's something that the county administrator and the county board of supervisors have to really sit down and say, this is what we need to do, and this is how we're going to do it. So
Right.
the zoning update is just a document that kind of makes things work a little bit better for members of the community.
Okay. So it may be, it may not be the planning department that needs to put together this one-stop shop idea.
It will be a combination of departments. It
Yeah.
will be a combination of the planning department, the building department, the public works department, and the emergency management agency. So all the departments within the county that have to do with land use or issuance of permits would come under this this one-stop shopping center, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word.
All right. Now, another thing that you're busy with, and I was able to see you in action, the Copper Community Plan.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And that's coming along pretty good, do you
It's
think?
coming along pretty good. We had a first meeting back in May, and we were able to receive comments on a proposed draft Copperopolis Community Plan. The second Copperopolis Community Plan is going to take place on July 27th at 6 p.m. at the Armory in Copperopolis. And we've put out some information regarding the date and the time, and we're currently going through some of the comments received from the first draft of the Copperopolis Community Plan. So the goal is for us to adopt a plan for Copperopolis, for the community of Copperopolis, which is similar or consistent with some of the other community plans that have been approved and adopted as part of the county's general plan. So this particular process is actually fulfilling one of those general plan directives to have a community plan for all the different communities within the county.
How many community plans are there?
Well, I think right now there are probably about 8 or 9. So
More than the districts then?
Yeah, and they're all kind of across districts. We have one for Copperopolis, Murphy's, Arnold, Mokelumne Hill and some of the other areas of the county that already have community plans that are in the general plan at this time.
Okay, so how many community plans are yet to be done?
The only one remaining that we're actually working on right now is the Copperopolis one.
Okay.
Yeah, all these other plans are already in the general plan.
Now, if the Copperopolis community plan turns out to be very good, but maybe better than the other ones, the other ones at some point can modify their plans
Yeah.
to take advantage of the...
Right. Well, I mean, one thing I need to emphasize is that a community plan it does not replace the county zoning ordinance.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So we still have a county zoning ordinance. And I think a while back, maybe that might have been the drive, was to have a community plan that is zoning specific, which means a community plan dictates not only the land use but also development standards for that particular community.
Right.
And I think we went away from that. And so what we got approved and adopted into the general plan were not community plans that were zoning intensive. They were community plans that identified goals and objectives for a community, history of the community,
Right.
things of that nature. So they would not replace the county zoning ordinance, but at least it affords members of that community an opportunity to identify issues and things that they would like to see within their community. And I've gotten a myriad of suggestions and recommendations. In the case of Copperopolis, we want to preserve the existing history of the community because it's a mining community originally. But at the same time, we want to incorporate new development that doesn't change the character of the environment or change the character of that community in general. People have asked, why don't we have recreational opportunities in Copperopolis? And so looking down the line, these are some of the things that we as a county would have to do when we actually get our master plan of parks in place. So we need a parks master plan that would help us identify where some of these recreational opportunities are. And then we have to look for funding to actually develop them. I get comments such as we need a place for senior citizens to go, a senior center. We need a place for our kids to go and play, recreational opportunities. We need to attract industry into our community. So you have a balance between things that would promote economic development and things that would promote just social well-being. So these are some of the things that we're going to be looking at in the Kappa Community Plan.
Would part of this process be to assign different zoning for different parcels?
Oh, no. Again, the community plan does not do that because it's a plan for the entire community, not for us to look specifically at areas of that community and say you can only do so much. The county's zoning ordinance and general plan has already identified where the residential, the commercial, the industrial, and so on and so forth land uses should be. So what the community plan actually does do, though, is enhance what is already in our zoning ordinance and our general plan, and each goal and objective of the community plan is derived from the goals and policies of the general plan.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Another item for discussion is the Oak Woodlands ordinance.
Yeah, yes. So one of the tasks that I was given when I took this job was to make sure that we pass a Oak Woodlands ordinance. And some people may not know that the county has a hardwood advisory committee that looks into things dealing with hardwood in the community, and Oak Woodlands falls under that umbrella. So I have been working with the Hardwood Advisory Committee for several months now, trying to bring about an ordinance that would satisfy the needs and requirements of the community while preserving, to the extent possible, the beautiful oak trees that we have in the county. So that is the goal of the Oak Woodlands Ordinance.
So the purpose of the ordinance would be to control the existing oak trees, but not require planting new ones, or?
Well, it's a good thing you asked that question. Now, the main purpose of the Oak Woodlands Ordinance is to preserve not only the oak woodlands, but also to preserve the habitat that derive their existence from the oak woodlands. So, birds and things of that nature that live in those trees. So what the Oak Woodlands Ordinance actually focuses on is on discretionary developments that require approval by a planning commission. So it does not affect the ability of a private homeowner to maintain or manage oak trees within their property. So the Oak Woodlands Ordinance would come into effect if somebody wanted to build a development in our community and they chose a property that has oak woodlands existing on them. So what the ordinance does is identify that if you do remove oak woodlands, you have to replace them somewhere else, either by buying conservation land somewhere where we can actually plant oak woodlands, or you pay an in lieu fee that would be based on appraisal done by professionals in that industry. And then the ordinance would have a ratio of, if you took out 5 acres of oak woodlands, and based on the number of trees within the woodlands, you would replace them with a particular ratio based on the number of trees that are removed. So that's how the methodology of the Oak Woodlands Ordinance is going to work. And so the next step is for the Hardwood Advisory Committee to recommend a final draft of the Oak Woodlands Ordinance to the Planning Commission, and then we'll have a public hearing on it. And then once the Planning Commission deliberates on that with public input, of course, because everything we do in the county has to include public participation, and then they would make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, and then we have another public hearing, and then we have another public input, and then we would have an ordinance that has included comments from members of the community, the Hardwood Advisory Committee, the Planning Commission, and the Board of Supervisors, and then the ordinance kind of goes into effect.
So, if there's going to be oak woodlands removed, say if they're going to build an apartment house, and there's no place on the property for that, I'm wondering what sort of cost is the property owner going to have? We know he's going to have cost of removing the trees, but we don't know what the cost would be for replanting or what kind of money he has to pay.
Yeah, mitigation, yeah. Well, I mean, we wouldn't know that until we actually see the condition of the oak woodlands that are going to be displaced. And then we have to use the help of experts in the industry, somebody who is a certified forester or somebody who has a degree in biology or things of that nature, to have an assessment of the existing environment whereby these trees would be removed, and then they will provide us with an estimate of what is actually it's going to cost to do a replacement based on a ratio identified in the Oak Woodlands Ordinance. And then that could become, well, I can purchase land within a conservancy. I can pay in lieu fee based on an appraisal done for that site. So, but if you decide not to touch any of the oak woodlands on the property, then you're not really mitigating anything because you haven't really affected the existing oak woodlands on the property. Now, something else you might be interested in, I think, is one of the other ordinances that would be coming up very soon is the telecommunications ordinance. And what the telecommunications ordinance would do is give the county some guidance in how we regulate cell towers and things of that nature. Right now, the FCC, we have a federal rule that regulates the placement and how cell sites are identified within a community, but each community is also required to adopt its own special ordinances.
Oh, really?
that address that issue. So we'll be able to regulate things like height, location, the type and the number of equipment, whether or not we want any kind of screening, but we cannot do anything as a government agency that would affect radio frequency radiation when it comes to these cell towers.
It would seem like the cell towers are already there.
Yeah, most of them are here. We've approved quite a few of them, and there are some more that might be coming down the line. But as it stands at this particular time, we are working on an ordinance that would help us to go through the process a little bit easier.
Huh.
Yeah.
It seems like well, one of the things that is concerned with the public and the taxpayers is the cost of housing.
Oh, yes.
The more regulations and requirements that are put onto the builder, the higher the price of the building is going to be, and if it's going to be rented, the higher the rents have to be to make sense for return on investment.
Yeah.
And also, when the costs are high, it becomes unaffordable for a lot of people, and they have to go to someplace else to live,
Right.
even though they might work in our county.
Right.
And so it's kind of a struggle to.
It is a struggle. Well, I mean, housing is a struggle all across the state, and housing prices in our county is rising by the day. And I would tell you that we still have some of the cheapest housing in our community, but then we also have some housing that are quite expensive.
Yeah.
What we don't really have is housing for the workforce population,
Right.
people who actually work for a living, that do not have the $1 million to buy a property in Copperopolis or Murphy's or Arnold. We don't have those kinds of housing units in our county. We don't have multi-housing development in our county. So it is a challenge. It is a challenge, and because housing is such, housing is regulated more by the private sector and not the public sector.
Right.
We make the rules and regulations, but we don't build housing
No.
in this county. So private development builds housing. So I think what we need to do to solve some of our housing problems is to have a public-private partnership whereby we recognize the need for housing and they recognize the needs to build housing. But there's one thing that neither side can control, which is the cost of construction. And when I talk to people across the board, what they've told me is it costs too much to build. So, and if it costs so much to build, they're not able to sell those homes to people that fall within a particular income bracket. So that creates a problem. And if it's housing units like, let's say, multifamily apartment housing development, the rent has to be commensurate with the amount of money that goes into constructing them. And it just so happens that in our county, we do not require too many kinds of enhancements to a development. You know, we don't
Yeah.
ask for additional landscaping.
Do we have enough mobile home parks?
We have enough.
Okay.
We have enough mobile home
That seems to
parks.
be the inexpensive housing.
It seems to be the nexus housing, but again, if you're looking at housing that is around the $200,000 to $300,000 range for some mobile home units in this county. I've seen them from about late hundreds to about mid to early 200s for even mobile home structures. And because they're being designed not to look like your typical
Right.
mobile home parks anymore.
Called
They're called
manufactured homes.
manufactured homes.
Yeah,
They're called
manufactured homes.
manufactured homes, yeah. And they offer the same amenities, they're just smaller, yeah.
Well, you've been very informative, Gabriel. Thank you for being our guest.
Thank you, Mr. Segalla, thanks.
Thank you for
Thank
watching Taxpayer Alert. We'll see you next time.